We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And it is the Doomsday Podcast after a Cowboys 35-27 victory in Detroit. A rare opportunity for Doomsday to have Ed Werder back in studio. Ed will be in Foxborough next week, but for this weekend, he's been traveling a lot. We had him home. He is in the Frito Nation production studio. Ed, great to have you back. Just really neat to see you in person and just be around you in the studio. It's just
my
makes
physical presence really adds an aura, I think, to the show.
Oh my gosh, it just sounds better. And plus, and we've had you recently up in the suite.
Yeah,
we certainly were up in the suite. Those are very late. Those when ESPN keeps you up very, very late. This is better. This is tonight. We're taping this thing. About an hour and a half after the game.
We like the noon kick where I'm off.
You love it. The noon kick where you're
podcast.
Off. In fact, I've talked to ESPN, and they're going to make this happen the rest of the year on noon games.
I know your history, and I know nobody at ESPN would dare speak to you.
Hey, they put Chris Fowler on with me this week.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, that was very nice of them
Fowler
on
needs
the radio
PR,
show. Huh? Yeah, Chris Fowler came on as we were preparing people for the Baylor OU game, college
what
game day.
What a historic collapse that was. That was even worse than the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you said something about, you tweeted something that people liked about, you thought I would be more insufferable than usual if Baylor continued down that path.
I didn't say insufferable. I said more difficult to deal with.
Okay, more difficult. And then the Bears were not able to.
They didn't like the sounds of that.
It's with a heavy heart I do this show. Yeah, it was ugly. But Ed, it is a different. I know you love being there and being on top of things and being in the locker room. But when you can sit there and watch the broadcast, it does bring you a little bit different perspective. And we're going to get to break it down from every which angle. But just your kind of visceral gut reaction to this game. Do you feel like would you be highly encouraged for Cowboys fans? Do you think that there's some excitement that should be going around, or do you look at it more of the glass half empty? Well, the defense got kind of lit up at times by Jeff Driscoll.
Well, they had the good fortune of missing the Lions playing with Matthew Stafford, but that didn't do them any good a couple of weeks ago when they played and lost to the Saints without Drew Brees. They still haven't beaten a team with a winning record. Now, all that goes away if you go on the road and win at New England next week against the defending Super Bowl champions. You don't have to win any other games to prove your legitimacy if you beat the Patriots in their own building. But we'll talk about that more later. I think the overwhelming takeaway from today's game is what a great philosophical shift that we've seen offensively from where this team started the season with Ezekiel Elliott. The last 3 years being the centerpiece of the offense. They couldn't win if he wasn't productive, to the point now where the guy who's most prominent in the offense is the quarterback, Dak Prescott. The Cowboys are playing the kind of football that gets teams to Super Bowls in this modern era of offense. They were trying to play against the grain in previous years, winning with the running game and the defense, and now they're just like the Rams and the Chiefs and the Patriots and the Saints we're trying to play average defense. We're going to win with an offense that can score 30 points a game.
Yes, it's more exciting to watch, and it does seem to be more effective, and we'll see if they decide to stick with that. But it was remarkable to see the commitment to that as the Cowboys improved to 6-4. It is time for the Doomsday Podcast. Frito, please play the music. All right, and Cowboys get this thing done. We will look at this from every angle. We will, Ed, give you an opportunity for the first time in a few weeks to talk to Glenn Stretch Smith, our resident former Cowboys scout and coach. Yesterday, last week, he used a term that would have, I don't know, you may have walked off the show to describe the coverage units of the Cowboys the last time we did this together.
You may use it again today, then.
I don't know. Yeah, he's not real excited about the coverage units, but let's start and let's really dial in on what the offense was able to accomplish. But now early on, Ed, the Detroit goes down there and scores, and this has been a slow-starting Cowboys team in recent weeks, but that was after a little bit slow out of the gates, the Cowboys got it rolling and really. I think they showed that, hey, if you want to get in a shootout, now you don't want to get in a shootout with Jeff Driscoll. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous to let Jeff Driscoll, run on you and do all those things. But again, it's not like there's a lot of tape on Jeff Driscoll. I would say what the Cowboys were able to accomplish in the first half was pretty impressive, and so much of it came from Dak throwing the ball downfield. Well,
I think, between a game they shouldn't have lost last week against Minnesota and a game that nobody thinks they can win next week in Foxborough, they got to play a Lions team with their backup quarterback. Two of the hallmarks of the Jason Garrett team this year, and two of the things that I think make him vulnerable to being fired at the end of the year are this tendency to start slow. They've allowed the most points in the first quarter, and they've scored their fewest points in the first quarter. And that's been a habitual problem for them. One that they have to overcome by halftime, or else they lose the game, because they've led at halftime in all 5 wins. They're now 6 wins, and they've lost all 4 games where they've been behind at the half. But back toward the philosophical change, and maybe we'd have been more. This would have been more prominent and obvious to everybody last week, except for at the end of the game when it mattered the most, when you really had to show who you trusted the most. Kellen Moore made the mistake of giving the ball twice to Zeke Elliott in the final minutes when the game was being decided. And in this game today, after another remarkable passing performance by Dak Prescott, when it came right down to it, when they needed one more first down to put the game away, they didn't do what they've always done, the thing that has always been the identity of this offense: power run the football behind the offensive line with Zeke Elliott. They actually had Dak Prescott bootleg out and throw it to Blake Jarwin. Game over. A very unique way for the Cowboys to clinch a game. And I know we're going to talk more about Prescott because we've got to put what he's accomplishing in historical perspective. I don't even think historical is a word. I think historic is a word, but historical is not a word.
That's okay. I mean, I think most people accept historical.
I like to be matter of fact. Anyway, so here's what I would say. The Lions, the thing that impressed me most about what the Cowboys did today, and again, it's the Lions. You should beat the Lions, especially without Matt Stafford. But the Lions eliminated Ezekiel Elliott. He had 16 carries for 45 yards. And the Cowboys had to manage Amari Cooper's playing time. And when he was on the field, he was covered by Darius Slay, one of the best corners in football. So he only contributed 3 catches and 38 yards. And despite all that, Dak Prescott beat him anyway. He beat him because of the thing the Cowboys have talked about since training camp, the talent and depth that they have on this roster. Despite what I just cited, Prescott found 7 different receivers with the football. There have been 14 400-yard passing games this year. Dak Prescott is the only one to have 3 of those games, and he's won 2 of them. No other quarterback has won twice throwing for 400 yards this year. Not Patrick Mahomes, not Aaron Rodgers, not Jared Goff. None of those guys. Only Dak Prescott has succeeded to this extent when throwing for 400 yards.
And, we went through that thing a few years ago, Ed, where you would see teams that had quarterbacks throw for 400 or 500 yards. I even saw it with Romo sometimes. When you'd have those huge kind of days, teams tended to lose those games because it seemed like it was a lot of that came from playing behind or desperation. And so the fact that they can win that way is a new thing. Now, we've also seen it this year in a game where I think he threw maybe 3 interceptions, where he ends up with something crazy like 497 yards or
Green Bay this year.
They
did
didn't
463 and threw 3 picks.
So that can throw off the numbers a little ways. But today, by leaning on him, it did lead to a victory. And you're totally right. And the announcers today made that point. They are trusting him. They are saying, hey, we're going to get the job done. And it wasn't about, hey, let's go in this game and run the ball. And, oh, Ed, by the way, how about that screen game? I mean, people talk about that. Well, that's an extension of the run game kind of thing. That looked really nice. The old, one worked with Zeke. That was brilliantly done. And then the man Pollard. We've talked about how this team drafts players. They want to have a complimentary running back. When they get into games, they forget about that. They don't work him in. Boy, when they really make that a priority, and today you saw it with those little tosses. You see that's a thing that kind of comes from the college game. Those little just where they kind of toss it right in front of them.
Shovel
there.
Pass.
Shovel, whatever you want to call it.
Little flip.
It's something that certainly you've seen the Chiefs use, you've seen the Rams, but it sort of comes from the college game a little bit. And I thought Pollard was extremely effective today. And his speed, you talk kind of a fire and ice or whatever you want to call that, that would be very complimentary to Zeke. And I think we may need to live. I think Cowboys fans that are looking to see what's the best this team could end up doing, at some point they're going to have to maybe accept the old, what's in our DA, we have to run the football. He has to have over 100 yards. That may not be who this team is, and they may have to kind of change this thing on the fly.
Well, I think there have been 2 players in, what Jason Garrett likes to describe as a meritocracy, and that you earn your starting position and your playing time with how you perform in practice and how you play in the games. And there's 2 guys on offense who have earned more opportunities than they've gotten, who were used well today, and that's Pollard, the rookie running back you're talking about, and Blake Jarwin, the tight end, who had 2 big catches in the game. He probably deserves more opportunities than he's getting. Now there's a whole second half of the season really to play here and use those players. Certainly you can argue that it was ridiculous for them to play Zeke Elliott all but 1 snap last week against the Vikings when the Vikings were imposing their will on him and had made a pointed effort to take him out of the game, that at no point did they try a speedier, quicker back like Pollard to see if he could, create some opportunities in the run game that simply weren't there for Elliott. But I've always been the sort that believe that Elliott needs to get as many opportunities as possible. And I think that's the approach Garrett's always had as well. That's why they drafted all these offensive linemen in the first round and paid them what they're paying them, the highest paid offensive line in football, the highest paid running back in football. And now you're winning with a quarterback that you're going to have to pay, but you haven't yet. But just talking to the coaches after this game, the thing that came out was they felt they kind of got the idea. I think people like John Kitna got the idea that they were inheriting a broken quarterback, or a quarterback who was really limited in what he could do as a passer. And they found that not to be the case at all, that as Kellen Moore empowered him and expanded the offense and learned to trust this quarterback, great things have happened as a result of that. And he's still a guy. He's thrown more interceptions, but he's still very risk adverse. He doesn't put the ball in a lot of jeopardy very often.
Maybe one big time example today on a deep ball toward the goal line,
which Tavon Austin again. I think he's done that a couple times where he slapped the ball down and played defense.
Maybe move him to cornerback. Is that the answer?
I think he's hurt again anyway, so I have to wait. But I just think that we're seeing a change in philosophy. And I kind of asked Garrett about this maybe a month ago, and he denied it. And it was like, I want to be a balanced football team, and clearly that's just not the case anymore. Now I think there'll still be games eventually where teams don't maybe pay the attention to Elliott that we've seen in some of these recent opportunities. And Dak doesn't have the numbers aren't in his favor in the passing game like they are right now. For instance, I think New England could be that team next week. New England's got a great secondary. They lead the NFL in interceptions. It's the fastest secondary they've ever had. So at some point, somebody's going to have to run the football effectively, and next week could be a game where Zeke is the featured player in the offense. But I think the point of this is the Cowboys can win either way offensively if they don't hurt themselves with turning the football over that we've seen way too often. 3 times already this year, Elliott's been held under 3 yards a carry, including each of the last 2 games, both of which they should have won.
They should have won, yeah, and it came down to it last week. They couldn't get it done down the stretch, and again, they turned back to Zeke in that moment, and we'll see if they ever do that again with the way Dak is playing. It is the Doomsday Podcast, and looking at some of these numbers, Ed, I did think it was funny. Sometimes we talk about situational pass rushers, guys that'll come in on 3rd down and all. Do the Cowboys now have a situational pass receiver? A player in Amari Cooper who just kind of comes in, makes some big catches, and then goes back off the field. He seems banged up, but the good news for the Cowboys is Michael Gallup and Randall Cobb just had huge days for them, and I thought showed a lot of toughness. Cobb had one that he maybe should have made a play on.
But the play he made for his touchdown was a great catch because he was hit with by a defender. It was called for a personal foul and
Correct.
Still held onto the ball.
That was nice. And then Gallup made an incredibly physical
for
play
a 41-yard catch.
On the 41-yard catch, and you're seeing a quarterback go down. That's the thing. Early in Dak's career, he didn't really have the confidence in his receivers or
he
himself.
Didn't have the opportunity.
But also to throw guys open or go up and let guys make plays. Now, part of this was it's helpful when you have a team like Detroit who is struggling in the secondary, and balls somehow just go right through Darius Slay's hands.
Would you like me to put that into some kind of context?
Well, I mean, I like the way I said it, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, I like the way you said it.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of supporting your
please
your
be a
random statement with no factual basis. It's an observation.
Yeah,
and I'm now going to support that with some facts.
Love it when you're supportive. Go ahead.
So the Lions have allowed multiple touchdown passes without an interception now in 5 straight games. That's the longest active streak in the NFL and tied for the longest streak in Lions history. It ties for the 4th longest streak in the NFL. So, yeah, the Lions have a great corner in Slay, and he did a good job taking away Cooper when Cooper was on the field, but the Cowboys were resourceful enough and had enough depth, as I mentioned earlier, at the wide receiver position to still come up with 2 200-yard receivers, a pair of 200-yard receivers, so that you don't get that confused.
Yeah.
So I think I supported the point you made.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. I like that.
I'm here for you.
Yeah, please always jump in. I will say this also. You had the great performances. I agree with you. I've been calling for more Jarwin every time, and I never know if it's because Witten slowed down so much or Jarwin's actually that athletic, but you get him out in the open field and the guy is seemingly electric. He makes some plays. But Witten made some great plays today. Witten made a catch across the middle. That thing was kind of in traffic, and that was not easy. That was away from his body, and he made a nice catch. So, I mean, we have wanted that around here for years and years, some sort of complementary situation at tight end. Lo and behold, they may have it with Jarwin and Witten able to. And I think Witten has finally allowed some of these guys to actually join him on the field. There are some 3 tight end looks that they have, and even the young Schultz had a catch today. They got Schultz in space. That was his second
Another
catch.
priority.
Yes, very much so. That was his second catch of the season. But I thought there were a lot of good things. By the way, Dak's final stats, in case we haven't mentioned this, 26 of 40, 393 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That's 122.2 passer rating. And our buddy, we have so many staff members here. Ross Hudson had this number, Ed, 377 dropbacks this year. That includes, of course, sacks and everything. And on 10-plus yards per completion, that's happening 34.3% of the time. I mean,
pretty
that's
high
pretty
percentage.
outstanding, yeah.
Well, I remember as we're talking about the evolution of the Cowboys offense under Kellen Moore, and with Dak Prescott becoming a much more prominent and trusted quarterback in the passing game. Remember last year, Jerry said that their offense could be the equal of the Rams, and we all laughed, right? We thought it was the most another preposterous Jerry statement. I'm not going to say the most preposterous statement of all time because Jerry's made so many outlandish claims that it's hard to kind of quantify them or rank them. But that seemed a a delusion at the time, and now it's not. This is the 6th time that they've scored more than 30 points, and they've won every one of those games. They had 500 yards of offense for the 2nd time this season. They averaged 7.2 yards a play. They converted 62% on 3rd down. And again, Prescott was not sacked in the game. He used his mobility to be a factor in the game in the way that he failed to do last week.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, there's one game, just one every year, where Prescott does not run the football at all, and they've lost the last 3 times that's happened. Today, he ran the ball 6 times for 18 yards, but it was effective, and they're virtually invincible when he carries the ball and plays a physical game that he did, and we saw from him today.
Yeah, and have you noticed that shades of Romo, when he does that little pirouette move, it's a little slower when he does it. Romo used to that was one thing. Obviously, he's more athletic, I believe, than Tony. But Tony had that little move where he could put the little spin on him, and Dak's developed that thing. He's doing it more and more. And much like Donovan McNabb, Ben Roethlisberger, when you think of those guys, Ed, you remember how incredibly strong they were in their lower body at being able to shake guys off. Sadly, I saw it when Baylor was playing against Jalen Hurts last night. He's got that incredible lower body strength, and they're just able to shake guys off. And to your point, that is, I just think it's a huge thing that Dak's using. And boy, he keeps plays alive. And if you do that, somebody's going to finally come open. And they have enough confidence for him now did you see that one play? They didn't make it, but they sent Cooper. They literally rolled, Dak rolled right, and they ran Cooper all the way across the route, all the way to the other corner of the end zone, and he tried to hit him on that. He just led him a little bit. But there's a pretty big trust factor right now there, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that makes, all the difference in the world that the quarterback's been empowered and he's produced desired results. I mean, we were talking about this before we started, and this is the most prolific, in terms of yardage, 3-game passing streak we've ever seen in the history of a Cowboys franchise that, oh, by the way, has 2 quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame, and Roger Staubach and Troy Aikman. It was a different era, obviously. And then Tony Romo, who holds all of the Cowboys' passing records, was a direct predecessor to Prescott. Nobody ever thought we'd be talking about Prescott breaking Tony Romo's passing records, right? I mean, it was going to have to be, he's never going to be the kind of passer that Romo was. I thought that. He's proven us all wrong. He's proven us wrong that his skill set in this regard was far better from a ceiling standpoint than we envisioned, and his work ethic is the one thing I think that's fairly been compared to a guy like Tom Brady. And this guy's all about football. It's all he cares about. He lives for it. He works for the success he's had, and he's reinvented the Cowboys offense as a result.
And now he's the subject of a lot of people had made fun of his routine before the game with the little whatever that is to kind of warm up the hip
twist.
The hip twist that he did, and then today when
kind of aggravates me, by the way,
when Zeke that he can do that.
It aggravates me that everybody makes fun of it.
Oh, you think, hey, this is a legitimate thing.
It's a serious part of what he's doing and what's made him successwell, and then to be mocked for it. I don't mean to be all uptight. I have a great sense of humor, I think, but wow, see, I get everybody laughing.
I just like that you kind of have the confidence.
Good sense of humor.
I know.
Yeah.
I think most people that have a good sense of humor need to go ahead and call that out and let people know that they do. Yeah,
it bothers me because I know it's something he takes seriously, I guess.
No, he takes it seriously. I think he's getting a kick out of people doing it, but his own teammate,
that was awesome.
I think he found that pretty funny.
Even I could laugh at that.
Okay, good, good. You found the humor in that. And we are going to get to Stretch in a minute. I want you and I to jump over on this. No, never forget about him. I want to update you on the injury, but first, can I say something, Ed, about the Hudson Financial Group? Are you aware that they are?
Is this their son sitting right over here?
Well, Ross Hudson is part of the Hudson Financial Group.
Without you telling me, I figured that out on my own.
That's good. Nice. That's good. And he obviously brings some great things to us. Now, you can find them on Facebook, HFG Ventures /Hudson Financial Group. is a good way to, as we say this, Frito's like filming him to show Ross on camera, apparently. It is a full-service, independent insurance and consultant group that has been built with relationships over the past 31 years. And, Ed, one of the great things they do, let's say, for instance, you have home insurance, Ed. You have auto insurance.
Of course I do.
Okay, you have all those things. Well, they you can do that with them, and then you can start to build on that. And what they're great at is sort of having that sort of lifetime relationship with people. And then, of course, Ed, with you, there's a lot of complex financial decisions that have to be made.
Well, there have been lately.
Yeah, because of kind of some of the things that have happened to you in your career. They're there for that, and they can follow through. Randy Hudson, kind of the godfather of this thing. 4-year letterman, Ed. This is the football tie-in at the University of North Texas, 84 to 88, played tackle, played little guard. It opened some holes back in the day. I mean, that was when North Texas was the Mean Green were pretty strong. They're going through some lean times.
He didn't have to
now.
go up against Mean Joe Green in practice, though, right?
Mean Joe Green
would have preceded him.
Significantly older than Randy. Yeah, okay. Randy, as I just told you, played in the mid-'80s. Mean Joe would have been like in the early 70s with Hayden Fry and that whole gang. You weren't listening. That's right. Ed was over there getting some stats or texting a coach or something. Hudson Financial Group, so glad to have them. Find them on Facebook. Let me give that one more time. HFG Ventures / Hudson Financial Group. That's a great way to get in. And I've had a lot of people reaching out to me, asking me about Hudson Financial Group. Thank you. Great to have that big-time presenting sponsor that we have. Okay, we'll get to Stretch here in a little bit. Ed, there's some issues with this team. With this Cowboys team. They won 35-27. They played against Jeff Driscoll, a man making his second start?
No, he's 1-6 as a starter. He had some starts for the Bengals.
Oh, he did? Oh, the Bengals.
His second start for the Lions.
That's it. Second start for the Lions, but had some career starts. But now he's a big dude that runs around a little bit. He's kind of athletic. I was somewhat impressed with him. And, of course, when we talk to Stretch, I think he's going to have an issue with the way these cornerbacks cover. And, of course, they're down at cornerback. At some point today, I think Donovan Wilson played the first snap of the season, first defensive snap of the season from him. And so there were some issues with the secondary, although, Ed, I think you'd have to say, the defensive line did get after Driscoll some, so there was some good and bad on the defensive end of things.
Well, I think, and maybe we'll talk about this more later, but the pass rush has been pretty good, but there just hasn't been the companion to that you would expect to find, which is turnovers, because once again, the Cowboys could not force a single turnover from Jeff Driscoll, and I do think that they can dominate up front and that'll be a big part of whether they succeed or not next week against Tom Brady.
But the thing is, they might be able to dominate up front, but they're still going to need big-time points against the Patriots, and for most teams, that has been hard to come by. And I just wonder, in Foxborough, if it gets a little chilly, if Jason will get back into that, got to run it. We're just feeling kind of cold.
It's not up to him.
We better hand it off. Oh, stop it. It's very much up to him. Is it up to Jerry? Or are you saying it's up to Kellen?
It is up to Jerry.
Yeah.
Jerry had his new son, Kellen.
Jerry.
This week, not so much last week.
Man.
But you know what? I think when you're as good as the Cowboys are on offense right now, and generally that's who they've been all season long, at least against these bad teams. Now, they're not going to play very many bad teams the rest of the way. So they're going to have to take it to another level if they're going to win the division. And that seems the only route that exists that they can get them to the playoffs. And we all know that Garrett has to not only get in the playoffs but have unprecedented success there to come back for another season. But I think you can win with offense if they can produce it at this level on a weekly basis, as long as your defense does one of two things: either doesn't give up a lot of points or create some short fields for the offense. But other than the two games where they had created 7 turnovers, they just haven't. They don't do that. They don't create turnovers. And if this team's going to get to the NFC Championship game, that has to change. Has to.
Yeah, and it just has not been something they do on the back end of this defense. As we said, Tavon Austin
put the ball on the ground,
the ball
up front,
better than some of these guys.
Somebody.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I mean, no, Quinn tried. He went in there. I thought Driscoll did a nice job, especially for a guy that doesn't have a lot of experience, holding on to that one ball. I mean, Quinn reached out and tried to get the ball. Now, I'll say this, Ed, one of the missing pieces of this defense, we thought that perhaps, and you and I have hit this pretty hard, that they were going to have these two incredible young linebackers. Could this be the best tandem in the NFL? Van Der Esch and Jalen Smith.
They're the next Thomas Davis and Luke Kuechly.
Yeah.
Bobby Wagner. And
exactly.
It's not KJ Wright. I always want to say KJ Choi because I'm into golf, but KJ Wright.
It's not KJ Choi. He's
KJ Wright. I got it right.
No, you did. You did. KJ Wright. You're fine. You're fine. Yeah. You were just kind of showing people the math in your head. I think.
Never show your work. Just get the answer right.
That's right. And the thing is, those guys have really struggled recently, and I thought today there were some moments, both in the passing game, on back-to-back plays, Jalen comes up and just demolishes poor McKissick. I mean, McKissick kind of comes up in the hole, and I mean, you talk about a running start. That's some old-school kind of 80s football, 70s football, the way he attacked the running back there. And then I think it was on the next play, Van Der Esch comes in, knocks down a ball on a a short passing attempt. So I did think, and I'm not saying they're not going to make some, they're going to miss, they've both missed a lot of tackles this season, but I thought for both of them, it was a step in the right direction today.
We'll find out because next week, the Patriots are all about taking advantage of the plays that they can make, what they call inside the formation. So they're trying to beat the safeties and the linebackers with their tight ends and their running backs. They're not so concerned about the outside receiver most of the time. So that's who's going to get challenged on defense next week. So we'll see, because they can't win if Van Der Esch and Jalen Smith don't have strong games next week in New England.
Now, I thought, I agree with you. I thought Collins did some good things. He came smashing through there a couple times. I thought that was good. Hyder's in there, stripping. I mean, they're trying to do what you're wanting them to do. The ball came out of there a couple of times, and they just weren't able to really capitalize. But Hyder was in there stripping that thing like crazy.
Well, do we think Michael Bennett will be... He's been pretty effective in the couple of games. He had a sack today. He had a dumb penalty.
He had two of them.
First down.
But that one was horrible when they lined up in that, like they're going to do a fake punt or whatever.
He should be a little motivated going
the
to New England next week, right? He should be a little motivated.
He should be.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that's about 7 different teams that he could be motivated against.
Good.
He's been around.
He's been around
the league. That's a strange look, that muscle shirt look that he's going with.
It's the tiny little pads,
so to speak. Yeah, it's just, but they're not even really pads, are they? They're like, what do they call those, shells? I mean, he's got tiny.
They're shoulder pads he's had since like high school or something.
I guess it's kind of a weird.
He doesn't
look.
want to create any surface for the offensive lineman to grab him.
All right, Awuzie has.
Maybe he doesn't want his defensive coordinator grabbing him by the shoulder pads and lecturing him on the side.
That might be it.
Might be that.
By the way, did you hear that? Has Chris Richard had that great of a season? Because I thought that was interesting that. Our guy calling the game today was just like, this guy should be a head coach in the league. And it's like, all right, have we been watching this season? I don't know if he was quite ready for that, although
he's been interviewed, and he's probably, I would think over time he's going to get an opportunity to be a head coach, but the defense needs to perform better than it is right now if he's going to walk in with anything that impresses an owner.
What do you make of this secondary? They finally threw at Byron Jones a little bit later in the game. He still doesn't really play the ball. You know, he's there, he's in position. The guy, for whatever reason, just does not play the football. Is that something that's not taught with it by Chris Richard or whoever the secondary coach is? Well, I guess it's him. I just did that in my head.
See, you showed your work. You can't show your work.
That's right. That's right. Well, he calls the plays. It's hard to keep up with. But I'm just saying, none of these guys. I mean, actually, Anthony Brown made a play. I thought, what's his name made a play today? But Darian Thompson came in there and actually made a play on the ball at one point. Some of those safeties make better plays on the balls than the actual cornerbacks. This is a rough bunch.
They're facing the quarterback, and they're looking at the receiver in a way that the corner's not, right?
Yeah,
but
you need
you're not really worried about turning your
know.
hips and somebody running past you and embarrassing you in a one-on-one
situation.
situation.
But not all safeties have great ball skills.
But of course Richard teaches that. I mean, he was the coach of the Legion of Boom. That's how he got the position
Yeah,
he
but
has.
they were more huge hitters than anything.
Richard Sherman intercepted more passes than anybody in the league over the course of his career.
All because of the pass rush.
What about Earl Thomas? He's an interceptor. I mean, come on.
They did fine.
It's the players. It's not the way they're taught. It's the players.
I don't know. There's something. I'd like to blame the coaches sometimes.
Go ahead. Last week we blamed the coaches.
Yeah,
we blame poor Kellen Moore. He's like 17 years old.
Kellen
plays.
He is 30 years old.
He's 31. I think he's the youngest play caller in the NFL.
Anything else on the defense before we get to Stretch? Anything else you want to say on this defense? I mean, Driscoll. What did Driscoll end up with today? I mean,
I think he had like 209 yards or something like that.
Love the man's work. Driscoll may be the future in Detroit.
I don't know that there's a lot more to say about the defense other than they just. I guess DeMarcus Lawrence, went into this game with what seemed like an epic mismatch. He only had 4.5 sacks going into the game. He's across from not Rick Wagner, a starter that he got 2 sacks against last year, but against a rookie, Tyrell Crosby, and he still didn't get a sack.
No, I think the Wagner guy played.
No, Wagner didn't play. Wagner's out.
I didn't see Crosby in there today. I'm just saying we'll go to the tape. We could clean this up later.
So you're saying
it's a podcast.
They left Lawrence completely unblocked and he still didn't get a sack.
I'm just saying it wasn't Tyrell Crosby out there from what I...
We are right now
on Facebook Live. We can't clean up Facebook Live.
Now he tells us.
That's right.
How long has that been the case?
I don't know. I'm just saying. I just want us to.
How many people are watching? Many, really?
Thousands.
4,000 right now.
4,000 people.
Whoa! Facebook Live. That's a good amount.
I would have thought
Hello,
more.
Facebook Live. We'll check and see. I did not see Crosby out there.
We have a researcher sitting right here.
I know he's looking. He'll get to the bottom of it.
Yes,
he is. He's trying. He's trying. All right, that is our comment. We'll come back and we'll have some comments. But next, it is time to get the grades from our resident in-house coach and scout. It is Glenn Stretch Smith with his stretch marks. And, Ed, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Wow.
You have not been able to talk to Stretch for a little while because you're usually on the road or filming things after games, and Stretch and I kind of handle this thing. So, Ed,
it's really a personal rift between Stretch and I, but he's a benevolent and forgiving man, and he's allowed me to talk to him yet again.
Well, he's been very profane when he's not in your presence, but I know he always cleans it up when he's around you. Ed, where do you want to start with Stretch?
I guess I'd like to start with the quarterback. How can you not? Stretch, we were talking about this earlier, and I'm not sure anybody realized that Dak Prescott could be this kind of a passer. How much does his evolution surprise you?
Well, I think surprised. I am a little surprised. I do think that he has absolutely stepped up to the challenge, because I think when you see and I know both of you guys realize this, when Mike Zimmer last week said, you know what, we're not letting the running back beat us. And I think that Detroit took the exact same game plan and said, we're not going to let the running back beat us. And teams defensively can shut you down when they want to shut down one particular facet of your game. And they challenged the quarterback to say, you know what, if we're going to lose this game, it's going to be because the quarterback is going to beat us. And I believe he had a good enough game last week to win, and he really played well, today. And anytime guys are playing man coverage and they're saying we are going to stop the run, he stepped up to that challenge. And I think if you're a Cowboy fan, that is awesome to see, because now you know you truly have your quarterback of the future. You know he can accept the challenge, and you know he can step up and make the critical throws in critical times to keep drives alive. We saw it on multiple third down situations where he was able to step up and make those throws. And I think because of that, he absolutely gave you a winning grade.
Fair to say that he gets your highest grade, an A+ today?
Absolutely. He gets the high grade, no doubt.
All right, Mose, what do you got?
All right, thank you, Ed. Let's look at the running backs. They were able to use the complimentary back. Tony Pollard, the young man out of Memphis, the rookie today, and Zeke obviously got involved in the passing game, had a couple of touchdowns today. What kind of grade would you give these running backs?
Well, again, now, this is a tough day. I mean, they were shutting the running game down. They were not going to let Zeke beat them. I thought I think, when you look at a game like this, you got to say, okay, when running average-wise, it didn't look great. 40-something yards rushing. Let's get away from the stats a little bit, and let's get on to the fact that he does a great job of protecting the passer. I love the fact that he made the catch on the where they run the little screen outside. Dak had to kind of throw it sidearm. He went down and made the catch, didn't put the ball on the ground, got it in the end zone. Pollard is a good player. Now, special teams-wise, we'll get to that later, but I thought he did a nice job of supplementing and filling in, and finally they put two backs in the game every once in a while and put a Wallier in the game, and I thought he did an okay job from the fullback position. So I gave this group a B, and only because I wish they had better numbers. But again, the defense dictates what you can do, and I don't think you can ding a player when they bring extra guys in the box and say they're not going to allow you to run the football.
And so the grade for the running backs is?
A B.
A B. Okay. Let's talk about the offensive line. Obviously, great in pass protection. I don't believe Dak Prescott was sacked in the game. He was able to use his elusiveness to avoid some pressure. But again, we're back to the running game. How much of the struggles in the running game is due to the offensive line?
Well, I think some of it is. And I'm going to go right to the center, guys. And we talked about this before the show. I think it's hard when you think he's been out, Travis Frederick's been out a whole year with that autoimmune disorder. But I have to grade what I see on the film. I have to say, okay, what did I see here film-wise that made me feel like that this offensive line is still moving to the next level? They're still the kind of the bell cow for this team, and they're not right now. And I say they're not because I don't think Travis is playing at the same level. They were able to come down and play a bare front where it really you cover the center and the two guards, and they were able to stone the Cowboys. And I think that's the same thing, again, that you saw Simmer do. You've seen guys do that. And so anytime the blueprint is out there for a problem or what could be a problem for you offensively, and especially in the line, and then when you've got 11 personnel in the game, they've got 7, sometimes 8 in the box, you don't have enough to get on them, but you certainly better whip the guy or get on the guy that's in front of you, and they're having issues in the run game with that. Pass game, you pointed out, I thought they did a nice job of pass protecting, and that gave them a winning grade. But overall, boy, I'm concerned about the physicality of the front right now and the inability to move guys off the ball.
And you mentioned the Travis Frederick not being able yet to play at the all-pro level that he was before he missed all of last season. Junior, Suafilo is now playing left guard, and Lael Collins left the game injured.
Yeah.
Xavier. You're looking at some issues on the offensive line that they need to resolve. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. Thanks. Wide receiver and tight end. Let's look at those together. Boy, they let the Jarwin. They let him loose. I mean, he looks like kind of a thinner Tony Gonzalez to me out there. Just really, once he gets out in the open field, it's over. But then those receivers, Amari's been banged up, but the other guys were just brilliant today, I thought.
Yeah, really good route runners. I mean, I really like the addition of Cobb. I mean, I think he does so many things. He recognizes so many things. And when I say recognizes, I mean, there were several times where he's got the guy that's playing outside leverage on him in man coverage. He almost looks at Dak as if to say, hey, I'm going to lean on him. I'm going to stick him a little bit, and I'm going to get this back inside. I mean, we don't even talk about Cole Beasley anymore because of what Cobb can do and the threat that he can do. Gallup had a big day. Cooper's such a polished route runner, really does a nice job of sticking his routes, getting in and out of his cuts, being able to run some double moves. And Jarwin, guys, he really is. He's coming on. I like the fact that it's almost like Witten is kind of taking him under his wing and shown him some things because he has really taken his game to the next level, and even Schultz made a catch today. So overall, I think that group had a heck of a day, and I'm going to give them a B+.
Let's go to the other side of the ball. We expressed our concern about the fact the Cowboys continue to fail to create turnovers in short fields for their offense. Let's start in a secondary where I think they have 4 interceptions all year long. Next week, they obviously play the team that has the most in the Patriots. What was your grade today against a backup quarterback for the Cowboys secondary?
I'm concerned about this secondary, guys. I'm going to be honest with you. The guy that had the best day in the secondary was Jeff Heath. Hell, he didn't even suit out. So there's some things about Thompson's game that I like. I mean, he's a good run support player. But as far as being able to get guys lined up in the back end, I mean, when would you ever say, man, do I miss Jeff Heath? I mean, we've killed Jeff Heath, multiple times saying it's a half step short here. He's this, he's that. However, Jeff Heath is constantly getting them lined up, constantly gets them in the right position. And so, overall, Awuzie, they had a busted coverage. They run a baseline, dig return. He busts, doesn't get back. I mean, Byron Jones, Thompson doesn't go up and get the football deep in the middle. He tries to go up and make the interception. Just go up and knock the ball down. I mean, this is a group, guys, that I'm telling you, borderline, when I got on this show, was ready to give them an F. And because they won, I'm going to give them a D. And that's the only reason is because they won the game. Because I'm telling you, this secondary ain't worth the tinker's butt. You're going to keep me from swearing, Mosley.
Yeah.
You got my man on tonight, so I won't say A-double-S, I'll say but.
Yeah, there you go.
Earlier in his career, I described Jeff Heath as a guy who sure is around a lot of touchdown passes.
That's right. He seems to.
Well, and did you ever think you'd yearn for the day to say, God, man, do we miss Jeff Heath?
They cannot beat Tom Brady without Jeff Heath next week.
That's right. They gotta get Heath back in there. Okay, let's look at that linebacker core. I thought there's some pretty good play out of those guys, especially Jalen Smith, very physical brand of football, and he's been a little bit of a letdown this season. What did you make of those two?
Well, he got in the gap today. He guesses some, being Jalen. And when he guesses right, obviously, it's a very violent play, and then you're going to get his little dance and whatever. There's times that he guesses wrong. That concerns me. I thought, to me, Van Der Esch looked like he was back to being healthy. I mean, I saw him flying around doing some things that, health-wise, I didn't think he was healthy last week, and I really dinged those guys for that. But he played better. Sean Lee just. I hate to say this, guys, but he's on the downside of it. If he doesn't read and recognize immediately, he just doesn't have that initial burst to go and correct that and make that play. So I like that they stay in nickel a lot and stay in a 4-2 look. But linebackers, I thought this group probably played the best of all the 3 defensive groups, and that's just barely best, being okay. And I gave them a very average B because, again, they got in the wrong gaps at time. And when you let Jeff Driscoll run a little read option and pretty much do what they want to do at about 5 yards a clip, I don't know that I can give them much better than a B.
All right, B for the linebackers.
I'm going to let you raise his ire on the special team, so I'll go with the defensive line.
Okay.
If you could give us a little breakdown and a grade on the defensive line, I'll then excuse myself so you can use your profane language on your assessment of the special teams.
No, come on, Ed. Expect the best of me. Now, you got that fatherly instinct, and you expect something good out of me, and you get something good. But, defensive line, I like the addition of Bennett. I really do. I mean, he does some things in the game. I thought Collins had a heck of a game. I mean, he really is disruptive inside, and then at the end of the game, we got Lawrence to do some good things. So overall I thought this group played okay, not great. They played okay. Now at times this is the first time I've seen them come with a 3-man rush and then drop either Woods or drop one of those guys. Hyder, I'd seen drop one time, and I'm like, man, I don't like that scheme at all, but I can't ding the players for the scheme. I'm not liking the fact that they feel like they needed to doki-oke somebody by dropping 2 of the biggest guys on the dang defensive line out into coverage. But I still thought that the defensive line gave you a winning effort. They gave you an effort to get a sack late. Quinn is awesome, guys. I mean, he just gets out there wide, and I love the way he plays the game. He plays fast. He's up the field. He's disruptive, and for that, I'm going to give that group a B-. But I'm concerned, guys. I don't want to get into it, and again, I don't want to get into a bunch of three-man line looks. I want to see them continue to bring, four and do what the Cowboys do, which is create the pressure off of the edge. I didn't see a lot of that today, but I'm going to give that group a B-.
I think maybe they were looking at Woods and Hyder as potential safeties next week if he can't get back out there.
Good to have you back on. That's
right. That's right. Oh, Ed, showing off that sense of humor. Okay, the special teams. Let's get to it. You were not pleased. Pollard had a couple of moments there. Obviously, gave up the big return. What did you make of the Cowboys special teams and this Keith O'Quinn or whoever the special teams coordinator is? Should this man be in trouble?
Well, I mean, he better get some things tightened up. I mean, and mostly it's the punt coverage unit, it's the punt return unit, and it's the kickoff return unit. I mean, I'm not seeing anything that gets me excited. And used to, when you had Austin or when you had, when you saw Cobb go back, you thought it was a threat that they might do some things, and it carried over from that last play last week, and then when Pollard, kind of wasn't back. He and Wally weren't on the same page. Comes it out, gives him terrible field position at the 12, and then he lets the ball hit at the 2. When the ball, when you got a flip-flop look, which means the ball's spinning backwards off of a kickoff, and he kind of stood there as if to say, "Hey, I'm not even going to get on this thing." And I don't bark at the TV very often, and I find myself get on the ball. It's one of those things where you just say, "Wow." I mean, how. We're talking about football 101 here from a simplicity standpoint, and the fact that they are not doing a good job of really special teams to me is about effort. It really is about covering. It's about getting a hat on a hat. It's about doing the little things. And when your effort is poor, and it looks like your effort's poor, or it looks like you're unorganized, all of a sudden that dings you twice. So the special teams coordinator, special teams, I've been on a roll week after. Give him an F.
Oh, wow. Wow, an F.
Maybe, you got the Hot Boys, you're selling T-shirts. How about F Troop for the special teams?
The F Troop? Oh, man, this is a rough deal. Rough deal. Hey, Stretch, good stuff tonight. Look forward to watching your work on WFAA Channel 8 with Del Hansen. Who knows, he'll may go and plug tonight, help us out with some Kaepernick-type opinions. But good luck tonight. Be ready in case he calls upon you.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask him if he has one of those. If he does have one of those thoughts about Kaepernick. It's kind of like I tell you when you get a little carried away on Twitter. Just give yourself a timeout, Mosley. I'm gonna give himself a timeout. Move in, just to take himself off of it. Hit the delete key.
Don't hit send. Don't hit send.
That's right. That's right. All right.
Thanks, Stretch.
Best of luck to you, Stretch.
Hey, sorry to bother you tonight, Mosley. Good to hear from you, Werder. Y'all have a good night.
All right, there he goes. Glenn Stretch Smith, providing all the grades and just some very interesting stuff from him. As we watched the end of this Patriots-Eagles game as the Eagles were going down there to try to tie the ball game up and were not able to haul in what would have been a touchdown catch at the back of the end zone. And so the Cowboys are able to get one game lead on the Eagles. So that's nice.
More importantly, they don't have to play the Patriots coming off of 2 losses.
Yeah, that's right. They would be a very angry team coming off 2 losses. Did the Vikings go ahead and lose that game?
No, they won.
They came back. Oh, no. I was going to say all things were breaking for the Cowboys.
It was like 94 straight teams in the NFL down by 20 lost, but the Vikings broke that streak today against the Broncos.
Denver will do that to you. They'll let you back in. So will my Baylor Bears. They'll let you back into a ball game. Ed, is there anything else? We got to look forward, of course, to this game in Foxborough. Cowboys will go in there 6-4, feeling good about themselves with some of this offense. You'll be there on behalf of Doomsday and ESPN, of course. Any final sort of parting thoughts for our audience as we get ready for a big game next Sunday?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the Cowboys are 2-0 this season against Bill Belichick's last two defensive play callers, Matt Patricia, the Lions head coach, and Brian Flores, the Dolphins head coach. But now they have to play the master himself in his playground where he's won 20 consecutive games, including playoffs. But, and we've talked about the defense, and we've talked about the need to get a pass rush on Tom Brady, and here's why I say the Cowboys are the kind of team defensively that could give them problems, because New England has all kinds of concerns about their offensive line and their ability to protect Tom Brady. So far this season, going into this game against Philadelphia, Brady was completing an NFL low 28% of his passes when under pressure. Not only that, he leads the NFL with 19 throwaways, which is more than he had all of last season. And he's been flagged for intentional grounding, an NFL high 4 times this year. So you can see that pressure is really affecting Brady's performance and disrupting his ability to be a confident passer.
Man, that is interesting stuff. Say that one last thing again.
The one I choked on?
Yeah. Do that one more time. Get him a drink of water while he's doing this.
Tom Brady has been flagged for intentional grounding, an NFL high 4 times. That's 2 more than any other player.
Isn't that something?
And the most that Brady's had in any season since he became the Patriots' full-time starter in 2001.
Man, that is good stuff, Ed. Love it when you bring that kind of stuff to the table. Fun having you in-house. Frito, wasn't it great to see Ed in person?
Always.
Yeah, great to be at Frito Nation Productions.
Be on Facebook
Live, all those things. It was just wonderful for the team to be back together. Thank you to the Hudson Financial Group, Ross representing Hudson Financial, and also
making sure his dad's money's going.
I know, and boy, it's a great place out there. Rockwall, Heath, Carthage. I mean, that is they pretty much own Carthage, the Hudson family. They're big deer hunters. It's deer hunting season, so that's a big thing. I think they're all out in Paducah, except for Ross. They always leave Ross with us. We're having to watch.
Somebody's got to watch.
We're having to watch him this weekend. Make sure he's on his best behavior. But boy, Cowboys getting ready to go to Foxborough. They're bringing in extra to be ready for Kraft and the
youngest play caller in the NFL, Kellen Moore, against Bill Belichick, the all-time defensive mastermind.
My goodness, isn't that amazing? Cowboys to get ready for Kraft to the Patriots, bringing in some extra massage therapists this week.
I'm out on this. I walked out the door 5 minutes ago.
That's the Doomsday Podcast. We'll be back next week.
Maybe.
Next. Good night, everybody.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.